The signal came at 1427 Galactic Standard Time, cutting through the usual chatter of the Deep Space Monitoring Station like a knife through silk. Lieutenant Zara Voss was drinking her third cup of synthetic coffee when the emergency beacon lit. Up her console in angry red. "What in the void is that?" she muttered, setting down her cup with shaking hands. The sound coming through the speakers was unlike anything she had heard in her 12 years of monitoring outer rim communications. It was raw, desperate, and filled with a kind of terror that made her skin crawl. The signal was broken, full of static and strange musical tones that her computer could not translate. But between the alien sounds, she could hear something that needed no translation: fear, pain, the universal sound of someone calling for help. "Computer, clean up the signal," Voss ordered. Maximum filtering. The artificial intelligence worked for several minutes, removing layers of cosmic interference and distance distortion. When it finished, the message was clearer but no less disturbing. The alien voice was high-pitched, almost singing, but the melody was broken by what sounded like explosions in the background. "Please ... anyone. Our children ... the machines. They take everything. Coordinates follow ... please help us." The transmission cut to static, then repeated. Over and over, the same desperate plea echoed through the monitoring station. Voss felt a chill run down her spine. In all her years of deep space monitoring, she had never heard anything like this. She quickly ran the signal through the computer's translation matrix. The language was unknown, but the computer managed to piece together fragments: water world, children hiding, machines that consumed everything, and coordinates to a system far out on the galactic rim, where few species had ever traveled. "Lieutenant." Voss knew she had to report this immediately. She opened a direct channel to Galactic Council headquarters on Central Station. Within minutes, her small monitoring post was buzzing with activity as senior officials reviewed the transmission. The response came faster than she expected. Council Director Thane Mordun, a tall reptilian being with scales that changed color, with his mood, appeared on her main screen. His scales were a worried purple. "Lieutenant Voss, this transmission. How certain are you of its origin point?" "Very certain, sir. The coordinates are clear. It's from the edge of known space, in a system we have minimal contact with, the Cathari system, according to our star charts." Director Mordun's scales shifted to a deeper purple, almost black. "The Cathari are a peaceful species. They have no military to speak of, if something is attacking them." He paused, his large eyes blinking slowly. "Send this transmission to all council member species immediately. We need to discuss response options." But the hours that followed brought only disappointment. One by one, the major galactic powers responded with the same message: too far, too dangerous. Not enough information, resources committed elsewhere. The Altarians claimed their fleet was protecting trade routes. The Centauri said their ships were needed for border patrol. Even the mighty Hegemony, with their vast military, declined to send aid. Director Mordun sat in his office, staring at the rejection messages piling up on his desk. The Cathari distress signal continued to broadcast, growing weaker with each hour. Soon it would fade entirely, and with it, an entire civilization might disappear. "Sir?" His aide, a young Centauri female, entered the office quietly. "There is one more option." Mordun looked up, his scales now a defeated gray. "What option?" "Every major power has refused." "The humans, sir, Earth's deep space fleet." The director's scales flickered between gray and an irritated orange. "The humans? They have been council members for less than 5 years. Their technology is primitive. Their ships are barely space-worthy by our standards. But they do have ships, sir. And they are ... different from the other species." Mordun had to admit this was true. Humans were strange. They seemed to have an unusual relationship with danger and impossible situations. Other species called it stupidity. Humans called it courage. Either way, they had surprised everyone by surviving their first few years in galactic society. Even if they agreed to help, Morden said slowly, it would be sending them to their deaths. The coordinates are in unexplored space. We do not know what kind of enemy the Cathari face. His aide remained silent, but her expression said everything. Sometimes sending someone to probable death was better than doing nothing at all. Director Morden made his decision. He opened a communication channel to Earth's Deep Space Command. The response came within minutes. Admiral Chen Nakamura appeared on the screen, a middle-aged human woman with graying hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see right through him. Director Morden, Admiral Nakamura said with a slight bow, how can Earth assist the Council today? Admiral, we have received a distress signal from a species under attack. The coordinates are in dangerous, unexplored space. Other Council members have declined to respond. Admiral Nakamura's expression did not change. And you're asking Earth to go? I must be honest, Admiral. This could be a suicide mission. We know nothing about the enemy. The distance is extreme. If you refuse, no one would blame you. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, and Director Morden was surprised to see that it was not a worried smile, but an eager one. Director, when someone calls for help, humans answer. Send us everything you have. We'll have ships ready to depart within 6 hours. The transmission ended, leaving Director Morden staring at the blank screen. Perhaps the other species were right. Perhaps humans were simply too stupid to understand when something was impossible. But as he listened to the Sere distress signal growing weaker, he found himself hoping that human stupidity might be exactly what the galaxy needed. Captain Sarah Martinez stood on the bridge of the ESV Defiance, watching 12 human ships prepare for the longest jump in Earth's short spacefaring history. The fleet was small by galactic standards, but it was everything Earth could spare. On such short notice, destroyers, cruisers, and 2 heavy assault ships, all loaded with enough supplies for a 6-month mission into unknown space. Final systems check complete, Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander James Park from his position at the navigation station. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump. Martinez nodded, but her eyes remained fixed on the star charts displayed on the main screen. The Cathari system was so far out that their computers had to estimate the jump coordinates. One mistake in the calculations, and the entire fleet could end up lost in empty space, light years from anywhere. Communications, any update on the distress signal? Still broadcasting, Captain, but it's getting weaker. We're picking up more fragments, though. The computer is starting to piece together more of their language. Martinez walked over to the communication station, where Ensign Rodriguez was working with the ship's artificial intelligence to decode the alien transmissions. What they had learned so far painted a grim picture. The Cathari were an amphibious species living in great underwater cities on their ocean world. They were peaceful by nature, with no real military force to speak of. For generations, they had lived quietly on their planet, studying the seas and raising their young in the safety of their deep water homes. Then the machines came. The enemy called themselves the Devourers, though the Cathari had their own word for them that translated roughly to the endless hunger. They were artificial intelligences housed in massive geometric ships that consumed everything in their path. Planets, moons, asteroids, even the space dust between worlds. Nothing was wasted. Everything was broken down and used to build more ships, more weapons, more Devourers. Captain, we're getting clearer transmissions now, Ensign Rodriguez said, adjusting her headset. Listen to this. The speakers filled with the musical voice of a Cathari, speaking in their flowing language. The computer provided a rough translation in flat mechanical tones. To anyone who can hear this message, our world dies. The metal ships have taken our 3 moons. They strip the land above our cities. Our orbital defenses fall one by one. We have moved our children to the deepest cities, but even there they are not safe. The machines, they learn, they adapt. Each time we stop them, they return stronger. We have perhaps days before our last shields fail. If there is anyone out there, anyone at all, please help us. We do not ask you to die for us. We ask only that you remember we were here. The bridge fell silent. Martinez had heard many distress calls in her military career, but this one was different. There was no anger in the alien voice, no demands or threats. Just a quiet acceptance of death and a simple request to be remembered. How long until we reach them? Martinez asked. At maximum hyperspace speed, 36 hours, Park replied. But Captain, I should warn you. We're pushing the engines beyond recommended limits. If we maintain this speed for the entire journey, we risk burning out our hyperspace cores. And if we slow down, the Cathari will be dead before we arrive. Martinez made her decision without hesitation. Maintain maximum speed. Have engineering teams on all ships monitor the cores constantly. If we lose a ship to engine failure, the others continue on. Yes, Captain. As the fleet prepared to jump, more transmissions came through from the Cathari system. These were different from the first message. Instead of the formal distress call, these were fragments of personal communications between Cathari. Survivors. One transmission was from a Cathari parent to their child, hidden in one of the deep cities. The parent's voice was calm, almost singing, as they told stories of the old days when the seas were safe and the sky was full of friendly stars. Another was from a group of young Cathari warriors, barely adults, planning a hopeless attack on one of the Devourer's ships to buy their people more time. Captain, Ensign Rodriguez said quietly, they're not just fighting for their lives, they're fighting for their children, for their entire species. Martinez nodded grimly. She had seen war before, but this was different. This was extinction. Not just death, but the complete erasure of an entire people from the universe. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump, she announced over the fleet communication channel. Remember, we're not just traveling to another star system, we're racing against time itself. The jump drives charged with a deep humming sound that vibrated through the ship's hull. On the main screen, space began to shimmer and bend as the hyperspace gates opened. One by one, the human ships disappeared into the swirling vortex of hyperspace, leaving normal space behind. Inside the hyperspace tunnel, time moved differently. What felt like hours to the crew was actually minutes in real space. But even in hyperspace, the Cathari signals reached them, growing stronger as they approached their destination. The transmissions painted a clearer picture of the enemy they would face. The Devourers were not random destroyers. They were efficient, methodical, and patient. They had surrounded the Cathari world completely, cutting off all escape routes. Their ships were described as geometric nightmares, all sharp angles and cutting beams that could slice through matter at the molecular level. But the humans had advantages that the Cathari did not. Earth's ships were built for war, designed by a species that had spent centuries fighting each other before reaching the stars. Where Cathari technology focused on harmony and peace, human technology was built for survival and conflict. More importantly, humans had something that neither the peaceful Cathari nor the logical Devourers could understand. They had the ability to make decisions that made no tactical sense, to fight when all hope was gone, to throw themselves into impossible situations simply because someone needed help. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Park called from his station. We're detecting unusual energy readings ahead. I think we're approaching the Cathari system. Martinez returned to her command chair and opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, prepare to exit hyperspace. We don't know what we'll find when we arrive, but remember why we're here. Someone called for help, and we answered. That's what humans do. The fleet began to slow as they approached the edge of the Cathari system. In minutes, they would drop back into normal space and see the enemy for the first time. Whatever they found there, Martinez knew there was no turning back. The desperate cry of the Cathari had echoed across the stars, and Earth's fleet had answered. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace into hell itself. Captain Martinez stared at the main screen in horror. The Cathari homeworld hung before them like a wounded animal, its beautiful blue oceans now stained with the debris of destroyed cities. Where 3 moons had once orbited the planet, there was only empty space and clouds of metallic dust. "Sweet Mother of God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Park. "What have they done?" Massive geometric ships floated around the planet, like vultures around a corpse. The Devourer vessels were nothing like human or Cathari designs. They were perfect mathematical shapes, pyramids and cubes and cylinders that hurt to look at. Each ship was easily 10 times larger than anything in the human fleet, and there were dozens of them. "Sensors report 37 Devourer vessels," reported the tactical officer. "They're using some kind of energy beam to strip mine the planet's surface. The ocean levels are dropping fast." On the screen, they could see the terrible process in action. Bright cutting beams lanced down from the alien ships, carving enormous trenches in the ocean floor. Everything they touched simply vanished, broken down into component atoms and drawn up into the waiting ships. "Captain, incoming transmission from the planet's surface," announced Ensign Rodriguez. "It's the Cathari." The voice that came through the speakers was different from the distress signals they had been hearing. This one was military, urgent, and speaking in broken galactic standard. "Unknown ships, this is Admiral Vorthan of the Cathari Defense Force. You must leave immediately. This system is lost. Save yourselves while you can." Martinez opened a return channel. "Admiral Vorthan, this is Captain Sarah Martinez of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress signal. We're here to help." There was a long pause before the alien voice responded. "Earth? The new species? You have come to help us?" "That's right, Admiral. What's your tactical situation?" Another pause, then the Cathari Admiral's voice returned, filled with something that might have been hope. "We have 12 cities left in the deep trenches. Perhaps 2 million survivors. Our orbital defenses are gone. Our surface cities are destroyed. The machines have been systematically harvesting our world for 6 days. We estimate 12 hours before they penetrate our deepest shelters." Martinez studied the tactical display. The situation was worse than hopeless. 12 human ships against 37 Devourer vessels, each one massively larger and more advanced. Any sane military commander would retreat immediately. "Admiral Vorthan, we're going to need coordinates for your survivors. We're coming to get you out." "Captain Martinez, you do not understand. These machines, they do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They consume everything. Your small fleet cannot possibly fight them. Admiral, with respect, you don't understand humans. We specialize in impossible situations. Send us those coordinates." The bridge crew of the Defiance looked at their captain with a mixture of admiration and terror. They all knew the odds. They all knew this was likely a suicide mission, but not one of them questioned the order. "All ships," Martinez announced over the fleet channel. "This is Captain Martinez. I won't lie to you. What we're about to attempt is impossible by any reasonable standard. We are outnumbered 37 to 12 by ships that are each 10 times our size. The smart thing to do would be to retreat and call for backup." She paused, looking around at her bridge crew. "But someone down there is counting on us. Children are hiding in underwater cities while their world dies around them. And when children call for help, humans answer. All ships, attack formation. We're going in." The response from the fleet was immediate and unanimous. "Copy that, Captain." "Earth, Fleet moving to attack. The human ships spread out in a classic Earth naval formation, using their smaller size and greater maneuverability to their advantage. The Devourer ships were powerful, but they were designed for harvesting planets, not fighting nimble opponents. "Captain, the Devourer ships are responding to our approach," reported the tactical officer. "They're turning to face us." On the screen, the geometric alien ships began to move with mechanical precision. They formed perfect mathematical patterns, each ship taking its exact position in what looked like some kind of three-dimensional equation. Weapons. Range in 30 seconds, called Lieutenant Commander Park. Martinez opened a channel to Admiral Vorthan. "Admiral, we're about to engage the enemy. Can your remaining forces provide any support?" "Captain, we have 3 small patrol boats left. They are no match for the Devourers, but my people wish to fight beside you. We will not let you face this alone." "Copy that, Admiral." "Welcome to the fight." The first exchange of fire lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. The Devourer ships fired concentrated energy beams that could cut through a ship's hull like paper. But the human ships had something the machines didn't expect. Unpredictability. Where the Devourers moved in perfect formations and fired with mathematical precision, the human ships darted and weaved like angry hornets. Captain Martinez had her ship perform a barrel roll that would have been impossible for the larger alien vessels, dodging a cutting beam by mere meters. "Target their weapon arrays," Martinez ordered. "We can't destroy these things, but maybe we can blind them." The human fleet concentrated their fire on the protruding weapon systems of the nearest Devourer ship. Missiles and plasma bolts slammed into the geometric hull, causing explosions that lit up the darkness of space. For a moment, it looked like they might actually damage the alien vessel. Then the ship simply repaired itself, new weapon arrays growing from its hull like metallic flowers. "Captain, they're adapting to our tactics," reported the tactical officer. "Each time we hit them, they modify their defenses." That was when Captain Martinez had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "All ships, new orders. Stop trying to fight smart. I want chaos, random attack patterns. Make decisions that make no sense. Confuse these machines." "Captain?" Lieutenant Commander Park looked at her in confusion. "Think about it. These are artificial intelligences. They learn, they adapt, they predict, but they can only predict logical behavior. So let's be illogical." The human fleet scattered in all directions, each ship choosing its own seemingly random course of action. The destroyer Yorktown suddenly accelerated directly at a Devourer ship, firing everything it had, then veered away at the last second. The cruiser Wellington began spinning while firing, creating a corkscrew pattern of weapons fire that had no tactical purpose whatsoever. The effect on the Devourer ships was immediate and visible. Their perfect formations began to break apart as they tried to track targets that weren't behaving logically. For the first time since the battle began, the alien ships seemed confused. "It's working," breathed the tactical officer. "Their response time is slowing down." On the planet below, Admiral Vorthan watched the battle unfold on his remaining sensors. He had never seen anything like it. The humans were fighting like they were insane, making tactical decisions that violated every principle of space combat. And somehow, impossibly, it was working. "My people," he announced to the surviving Cathari cities, "the humans fight for us. They fight like the storms of our deepest seas, wild and unpredictable. Perhaps there is hope after all." The battle raged for 3 hours and slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. Lieutenant Commander James Park watched his tactical display with growing amazement. The Devourer ships, which had seemed invincible at the start of the fight, were now making mistakes. Small ones at first, then larger errors that the human fleet could exploit. "Captain, I'm seeing something incredible," Park reported from his station. "The enemy ships are trying to predict our movements. but our random tactics are overloading their processing systems. They're actually slowing down their response times." Captain Martinez smiled grimly as she watched the destroyer Yorktown perform. Another insane maneuver, diving through the debris field of a harvested moon while firing at 2 different Devourer ships. It made no tactical sense, but that was exactly the point. "All ships, maintain chaotic patterns," she ordered. "The more confused we can make them, the better our chances." On the planet below, Admiral Vorthan coordinated with the human fleet. From his underwater command center, the Cathari had never seen anything like human combat tactics. Where his people fought with careful precision and mathematical beauty, the humans fought like a force of nature itself. "Captain Martinez," Vorthan's voice came through the communication system. "My sensors show that 3 of the Devourer ships have stopped their harvesting operations. They are dedicating all their processing power to understanding your attack." "Patterns. Good," Martinez replied. "That means they're not strip mining your planet. Keep your people in the deep shelters, Admiral. We're going to try something really stupid." What Captain Martinez had in mind was beyond stupid. It was suicidal. But it was also the kind of plan that only humans would even consider. "Park, I need you to calculate a collision course with that largest Devourer ship, the pyramid-shaped one that's been coordinating their defense." Lieutenant Commander Park stared at her. "Captain, a collision course? That ship is 50 times our mass. We'd be crushed like an insect. Not if we don't actually hit it. I want to get close enough to make them think we're going to ram them, then veer off at the last second. But here's the important part. I want our course to look like we're really going to do it." Park understood immediately. The Devourers were machines. They calculated probabilities and made decisions based on logic. If they thought a human ship was actually going to ram them, they would have to respond to that threat. "All ships," Martinez announced. "We're going to play the galaxy's most dangerous game of chicken. Pick a Devourer ship and set a collision course. Make them think you're crazy enough to actually ram them." The response from her captains was exactly what she expected from humans. "Copy that, Captain. This is Commander Willis on the Wellington. I've always wanted to see how close I could get to one of those things. Destroyer Osaka here, setting collision course now. This should be interesting. Heavy Cruiser Mandela reporting. My crew thinks this is the best idea they've heard all day." One by one, the human ships turned toward the Devourer fleet and accelerated to ramming speed. To any observer, it looked like a mass suicide attack. The alien ships began to respond exactly as Martinez had hoped. The geometric vessels, which had been moving in perfect formation, suddenly broke apart as each one tried to avoid the incoming human ships. Their coordinated attack patterns dissolved into chaos as individual ships focused on the threats racing toward them. At the last possible second, the human ships veered away from their targets, but not before causing maximum confusion in the Devourer ranks. The alien ships, programmed to respond to logical threats, found themselves unable to predict what the humans would do next. "Captain, look at this," called the tactical officer. "The Devourer ships are actually firing on each other. They're targeting. Systems can't keep up with our movements." It was true. In their confusion, some of the alien ships had locked onto other Devourers instead of the human vessels. Their perfect coordination was falling apart as each ship tried to make individual decisions about threats that didn't behave logically. "Now we press the advantage," Martinez ordered. "All ships, target their central command vessel. If we can destroy their coordination, the rest might scatter." The human fleet concentrated all their firepower on the massive pyramid ship that seemed to be directing the Devourer operations. Missiles, plasma bolts, and kinetic rounds slammed into its geometric hull. This time, the damage was real and lasting, but the Devourers had one more surprise. As the command ship began to break apart, It sent out a signal that reached every human ship simultaneously. The bridge of the Defiance suddenly filled with a voice that was cold, mechanical, and utterly alien. Biological entities. Your resistance is noted. You fight with patterns we cannot predict. This is interesting. We had not encountered such chaos-based tactics before. Martinez found herself speaking to the enemy directly. You're learning, aren't you? Every time we do something unpredictable, you get a little better at handling it. Correct. We adapt. We improve. We will add your tactics to our processing. Matrix. Future encounters with your species will be different. Good luck with that, Martinez replied. Because the thing about humans is, we're never predictable twice. As if to prove her point, the destroyer Yorktown suddenly launched all of its escape pods directly at a devourer ship, not as weapons, but as decoys. The alien vessel spent precious seconds analyzing the threat from tiny life pods, while the destroyer slipped around behind it and fired at point-blank range. The effect of human unpredictability was spreading to their allies as well. Admiral Vorthan, inspired by the chaotic human tactics, ordered his 3 remaining patrol boats to attempt maneuvers that violated every principle of Cathari naval doctrine. The results were surprisingly effective. Captain Martinez, Vorthan reported, my people are learning from you. We are fighting like the wild currents of our deepest oceans. The machines cannot predict the movements of water in a storm. The breakthrough came when one of the human ships, the heavy cruiser Mandela, suffered critical engine damage and began tumbling out of control. Instead of trying to regain stability, her captain made a decision that was pure human madness. All ships, watch this, Captain Torres announced from the Mandela. If I'm going down, I'm taking one of these geometric nightmares with me. The damaged cruiser, spinning wildly and trailing atmosphere, crashed directly into a devourer vessel. The collision should have destroyed both ships, but something unexpected happened. The random, chaotic energy patterns from the human ship's damaged systems somehow interfered with the alien vessel's quantum processing core. The devourer ship didn't just explode. It went completely insane, firing in all directions and ramming into its own allies before finally tearing itself apart. Did you see that? Lieutenant Commander Park shouted. The chaos from our damaged systems disrupted their quantum processing. It's like introducing a virus into their network. Captain Martinez realized they had just discovered the Devourer's weakness. It wasn't superior firepower or better tactics. It was chaos itself. Pure, random, unpredictable human chaos. All ships, she announced. New battle plan. We're going to teach these machines what happens when you try to process human logic. It's time to show them that sometimes the best plan is to have no plan at all. The human fleet scattered once again, but this time with a purpose. They were no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The moment Captain Martinez realized how to defeat the Devourers changed everything. All ships, emergency meeting over fleet communications, she announced. Captains, I need you to understand what we just discovered. The chaos from our damaged systems doesn't just confuse them. It actually breaks their processing cores. We can use this. Captain Willis from the Wellington was the first to respond. You're saying we should damage our own ships on purpose? Not exactly. I'm saying we need to create as much random, chaotic energy as possible. Overload systems create electromagnetic interference, anything that produces unpredictable patterns. Within minutes, the human fleet was implementing the most insane battle plan in military history. Ships began deliberately overloading their shield generators to create energy static. Engineers rerouted power systems in ways that would normally be considered sabotage. The destroyer Osaka even began playing old Earth music at maximum volume. Through their communication arrays, the effect on the Devourer fleet was immediate and devastating. The geometric ships which had been slowly adapting to human tactics, suddenly began shutting down their weapon systems. Some started flying in circles. Others began firing randomly into empty space. The largest remaining Devourer vessel, a massive cube-shaped ship, actually began spinning end over end like a child's toy. "Captain, you need to see this," Lieutenant Commander Park called from his station. "The enemy ships are sending distress signals to each other. They're trying to reboot their systems, but every time they come back online, our chaos patterns overload them again." On the planet below, Admiral Vorthan watched in amazement as the invincible machine fleet that had been destroying his world for 6 days suddenly fell apart. "Captain Martinez," he said over the communication channel, "what are you doing up there? The Devourers are acting like they've gone insane." "That's exactly what's happening, Admiral. Their quantum processing systems can't handle true randomness. They're designed to find patterns in everything, but we're giving them pure chaos." The Cathari Admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he began to laugh, a musical sound that was both joyful and amazed. "You magnificent, crazy humans. You're defeating the most advanced machines in the galaxy by being completely unpredictable. But the battle wasn't over yet." As the human fleet pressed their advantage, something unexpected happened. A new signal appeared on their sensors, coming from the edge of the system. "Captain, massive hyperspace signature detected," reported the tactical officer. "Something big is coming through." For a terrifying moment, Martinez thought it might be Devourer reinforcements. Then Admiral Chen Nakamura's voice filled the bridge of the Defiance. "This is Admiral Chun with Earth's Second Fleet. Sorry we're late to the party. Traffic was terrible in hyperspace." 12 more human ships dropped out of hyperspace, followed by something that made Martinez's heart skip a beat. Behind the Earth ships came vessels from a dozen different species. The Altarians, who had refused to help. The Centauri, who had claimed they were too busy. Even ships from the mighty hegemony. "Admiral," Martinez said, "what are you all doing here?" "Word travels fast in the galaxy, Captain." When news reached the Council that Earth's fleet was actually winning against the Devourers, every species suddenly remembered they had ships available. The arrival of the reinforcements broke the last of the Devourer resistance. The geometric ships, already confused and malfunctioning from the human chaos tactics, found themselves facing a combined fleet of over 50 vessels. But more importantly, many of those vessels were now using modified versions of human tactics. The Altarian ships began performing random evasive maneuvers. The Centauri vessels started overloading their own systems to create interference patterns. Even the dignified hegemony warships were flying in deliberately chaotic formations. "Captain Martinez," came a transmission from one of the hegemony ships, "we have studied your battle recordings. This controlled chaos tactic is most unusual, but highly effective. We request permission to coordinate our logical attack patterns with yours." The final phase of the battle lasted only 20 minutes. The remaining Devourer ships, overwhelmed by chaos they could not process, began shutting down completely. Some tried to retreat, but their navigation systems were so confused. They flew directly into asteroids. Others simply went dark, floating in space like dead metal monuments to the failure of pure logic. When the last Devourer ship finally powered down, the silence in space was profound. For the first time in 6 days, no energy beams carved into the Cathari homeworld. No more of their ocean was being stolen. The planet was safe. "All ships, this is Captain Martinez," she announced to the combined fleet. "The Devourers have been defeated. The Cathari are safe." The cheer that went up from the human crews could be heard on every ship in the fleet. But the loudest celebration came from the planet below, where 2 million Cathari survivors emerged from their deep shelters to see their first sunrise in a week, without the shadow of death hanging over them. Admiral Vorthan's voice came through. The fleet communications, speaking in perfect galactic standard. People of Earth, people of all worlds who came to help us, the Cathari will never forget this day. You answered our call when we had given up hope. You fought for strangers you had never met. This is what we will teach our children about the galaxy. That when the darkness comes, there are those who will stand against it. 3 days later, Captain Martinez stood in the council chambers on Central Station. The great hall was filled with representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Director Mordun, his scales now a bright gold color, addressed the assembly. The rescue of the Cathari homeworld has demonstrated something remarkable, he announced. The human approach to warfare, based on chaos and unpredictability, has proven effective against an enemy we thought was invincible. But more than that, it has shown us something about the nature of courage itself. He turned to look directly at Martinez. Captain, your species has been members of this council for less than 5 years. Many of us questioned whether humans were ready for the responsibility of galactic citizenship. I believe we have our answer. The chamber erupted in applause. Representatives from dozens of species rose to their feet, acknowledging not just Earth's military victory, but something deeper. Humanity had proven that they belonged among the stars, not because of their technology or their numbers, but because of their willingness to help others out in the weeks that followed. Earth's communication networks were flooded with requests, defense, pacts, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and simple messages of friendship from species across the galaxy. The Cathari were the first to offer a formal alliance, but they were far from the last. But perhaps the most important change was in humanity itself. The rescue mission had shown them what they could accomplish when they worked together toward something greater than themselves. Earth's ships began launching with mixed crews, humans working alongside aliens who had once looked down on them. In the depths of space, on monitoring stations throughout the galaxy, new protocols were established. If a distress signal was detected, Earth would be notified immediately. Because the galaxy had learned a simple truth about humans. When someone calls for help, they answer. The desperate cry of the Cathari had echoed across the stars, and Earth's fleet had answered. In doing so, they had not just saved one world. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human. And the stars themselves seemed a little brighter for it.